Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's special guest is someone whom I can honestly say I have loved my entire life. She started her career at the age of 3, playing Paul Newman's daughter in the movie Somebody Up There Likes Me. For the next 7 years, she played the adorable Linda on Make Room for Daddy, starring Danny Thomas. She was then cast as Brigitta, one of the Von Trapp children in the legendary film The Sound of Music. And who can ever forget her as Penny Robinson in the iconic TV show Lost in Space? Since then, she's appeared in numerous movies, including Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, and in television shows, including Make Room for Granddaddy. You can also see her in season 2 of the popular Netflix series Lost in Space. She's written numerous books, including my favorite, the award-winning Styling the Stars, Lost Treasures from the 20th Century Fox Archives, which features never-before-seen photographs of the greatest stars from the golden age of Hollywood. She also conceived and collaborated on The Sound of Music Family Scrapbook, which has recently been updated. And with her Lost in Space co-star Bill Mumy, she produced a beautiful book entitled Lost and Found in Space, which was recently re-released in an expanded edition. She and Bill Mumy also co-authored a fantasy adventure novel entitled On Purpose. If that weren't enough, she's also a highly accomplished artist specializing in hand-painted photography, and she's published 3 books featuring her work. And her beautiful artwork is featured in her own line of clothing, jewelry, and accessories. I am beyond thrilled to welcome the incomparable Angela Cartwright to our show. Angela, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, a pleasure to be here, and nice to meet you, Harvey.
Angela, I really meant it when I said that I've loved you my whole life. You were America's favorite daughter, sister, space traveler. Do you ever get tired of people telling you how much they love you?
Well, no, of course not. It's lovely that people come up to me and say, oh, I loved you in this or I loved you in that. I mean, I am most grateful when I receive compliments like that, but I can't say that I don't like it. No.
Now, you've been in show business literally for your entire life. And so far as I can tell, you never fell into the trap that so many child stars did with substance abuse, emotional breakdowns, even suicide attempts. How did you manage to stay so grounded and stable?
Well, I'd have to say that my parents were a big part of it. I was just a normal kid at home. I made my bed every day. We were a British family, so we came here to America. It was kind of a dream that my parents had of coming to the United States. And, a lot of those things followed us. We weren't, oh, you are the star, and let me get you this and let me get you that. No, I was a normal kid. My sister was a normal kid. We had our chores at home. We just happened to go to work and be in front of cameras in America on television. But that was kind of a sidebar,
Were your parents the typical stage parents?
Not at all. My mother was a nurse. My dad was a technical artist in England and came here and worked as a set designer, set decorator, and a art director. So he went on to do more of his art, but no way were they involved in show business. My dad did love to sing, though, and he did do a few stage productions when he was very young. But no, they did not come to America seeking fame or fortune or anything like that. They came because my mother loved the ocean, wanted to live by the ocean, and they had been through the war in England and wanted to kind of escape that.
Did you encourage either of your kids to pursue a show business career?
I didn't encourage them. I must say they kind of have it in their blood. My daughter is a showrunner, producer, and she has always been very personable with people. I call her the mayor because she knows everybody. And it's just part of her personality. Never said, oh yeah, go into show business, but it's a part of her. She's very good at it. And my son, he decided to go into business. He did put his toe into show business for a while, but now he is a businessman.
I want to ask you about Danny Thomas. You worked with him a long time, first for 7 seasons on Make Room for Daddy, and then 2 seasons on Make Room for Granddaddy. Did you remain good friends with him throughout his life?
Well, yeah, I used to call him Daddy number 2. I went to work every day. I saw him probably more than I saw my own dad in the beginning, but he was totally different than my father. I mean, he was gregarious and loud and funny. He was so funny. Not that my dad wasn't funny, but he was more reserved, and I adored my father, but they were kind of both ends of the spectrum. Danny was totally creative. We did Make Room for Daddy. I was 4 years old when I started on that, in front of a live audience every week, like a play. We, went from beginning through with 3 cameras, and he would ad lib a lot. So I learned to kind of not expect exactly what was going to come out of Danny's mouth, but it worked and the audience loved him. He taught me everything I knew about comedy.
Well, now, a lot of people may not know that you're one of the very few people still with us who appeared on I Love Lucy, or more accurately, the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, on the episode featuring Danny Thomas. Do you have any memories at all of working with Lucille Ball?
I was very young, but I have to say that is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. If you can ever catch it on, one of these networks that show these old shows. Lucy, I remember being very funny. She was just she had a lot of personality. I remember that. And I was very young, but I liked her very much. I didn't know Desi very well, but I did love Lucy. Oh, there's a pun for you. Yep, I did love Lucy.
You were 11 years old when you filmed The Sound of Music. Now, by then, you were a veteran child star with a very successful TV show under your belt. Was working on a movie a big adjustment for you after all those years of doing television?
Well, it was different, for sure. Danny let me out of the last show of Make Room for Daddy so that I could start on The Sound of Music. And for that, I was forever grateful because he didn't have to do that. We had rehearsals for many, many weeks before we even went in front of a camera for Sound of Music. We knew those routines inside and out. We went in the recording studio. We recorded the songs. It was kind of like being in camp, to tell you the truth. And for me, I became really close friends with Heather Menzies, who played Louisa. So the two of us were kind of inseparable. And it was so much fun because I had grown up really with Rusty, who was kind of a little devilish and not sure. He treated me like a little sister, He'd trip me and pull my hair and stuff like that. So I was so excited to be on a movie with all these other kids. So it was a lot of fun and it was very different. They took a lot more time, of course, with the takes and stuff.
I remember when I first saw you in The Sound of Music, Angela, I was very surprised to see you singing and dancing because we had never seen you do that before. You must have loved that opportunity to show the world a different side of your talent.
I didn't really think of it like that, but I had sung and danced. You're probably too young for some of the Danny Thomas shows, but I did sing and dance on several of those, which was kind of cool. I mean, I did take singing lessons and dancing lessons, ballet for years, and tap. So to be able to sing in The Sound of Music, I did enjoy that very much. I really did. So it was nice to, I didn't really think of it though, as kind of going in front of, oh, now I can show this talent. It was kind of just like, okay, and now I'm going to sing these songs.
Well, now the rumors about Christopher Plummer's behavior on the set are legendary, as you know. The impression that we get is that he didn't really like playing Captain Von Trapp and he didn't like children very much. What was he like to work with?
Well, I didn't have a problem with Chris at all. I think in a way, first of all, I think this is the conclusion I've come to. He was a very serious Shakespearean actor, and I don't think he ever saw himself in a musical, to speak. I think as he got older and later years, he realized you can't have a bigger stage than the movie The Sound of Music, which all of the world has seen. So I think he was grateful for it. At the time, he was determined not to make Captain Von Trapp this sickly, sweet, kind of cardboard cutout figure, which on stage, a lot of times Captain Von Trapp, in the early times when they did it on stage, really didn't have a lot of personality and you really didn't get a nuance. I think Chris brought such incredible insight to this character who really was, he was stern and gruff. He really didn't know what to do with 7 children. And I think, but he genuinely loved them. Working with him, I always felt very warm towards Chris. We didn't kind of, get together off the set. We were all kids. I know Charmian did, though, because she was 21. But on the set, he always kind of, opened his arms to me. I ran to him in a couple of the scenes. I don't know. I really liked Chris. I thought he was great. I think that story of him being gruff and not liking doing The Sound of Music is a little unfair, I think, to his talents of what he brought to the part.
Well, I was thinking when I read the accounts from different people that he kept his distance from the children. I thought that made sense because his character as Captain Von Trapp was as a stern parent who wasn't particularly affectionate. So it was in character.
Exactly. That was very well put, because I think there were some kids that weren't experienced in those Von Trapp kids. They had done maybe a commercial here or there. Nikki and I had the most experience as far as being, actors in show business. But I think that was a personal choice of his. Now, Julie, on the other hand, between takes, would sing and dance and teach us, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious backwards, which I can still do, by the way. It's one of my many talents. Being able to do it backwards, because she taught it to us. I can't believe I still remember it after all these years. Love Julie. It shows all the kids just were so, felt embraced by her. That was also a choice. When you work with children and this is supposed to be my daughter, you have to build a relationship. These are kids you're working with. So I believe it was a choice of his, actually, to be a little more standoffish. So the kids kind of had that, how is he going to react kind of thing. I do.
Could you tell while you were filming The Sound of Music that it was going to be such a monumental and iconic film?
I don't think any of us thought it would be as big as it was. I think we knew we were doing something major because of the time flying to Salzburg. We were there for 3 months. Robert Wise had a vision. He knew what he wanted this movie to look like. And I think we knew it was big. But when it first came out, we got very panned. The critics didn't like the movie, but people who went and saw it were enchanted by it. And word of mouth has an awful lot to do with success of something.
Oh, that's for sure. Now, in 2010, I will always remember this. All of the actors from the Von Trapp family, from The Sound of Music, all 9 of you were reunited by Oprah Winfrey on her TV show. That must have been such an emotional experience for you.
Yes. It was great to all get together. The night before, we all were at dinner, kind of reminisced. And, we had seen Julie, but we hadn't really seen Chris. And for us all to be brought together, I thought it was kind of a brilliant episode. She's, always took that, my favorite things, kind of as her own. So I know she was a big fan of the movie. That was a really great experience. They flew us all to Chicago. We had this gathering and this get together. So it was really cool. And we were all together once again.
We lost Christopher Plummer last year, and we lost 2 of your on-screen siblings, Charmian Carr, who played Liesel, and Heather Menzies, who you've mentioned. She played Louisa. I know you remained very close over the years. That must have been so hard on you to lose them.
It was like a family member. This doesn't always happen in show business where you make a movie, you're friendly during the movie, you maybe go out to dinner once in a while, but you don't become a family. And one thing that has happened with The Sound of Music is we all became very, very close, and we still are to this day. We, stay in contact, but it's kind of like this big dysfunctional family. This person's here. We're all over the world, which is so amazing. I mean, Nicholas is in Australia. We have just Michigan. We have, Los Angeles. It's unusual that happens. And it did happen with The Sound of Music. And so when we have gotten together, it has just been like a family reunion. And it was heartbreaking to lose Charmian so young. And then Heather, which was just devastating to me. It's very painful for that to happen. And then Chris, who was so sharp. And I mean, it was just his time, I guess. That's all you can think.
Yeah, I thought of you when Heather died. I know how close you were. Now, I want to say to our viewers, any true fan of The Sound of Music absolutely has to get The Sound of Music Family Scrapbook, which gives the inside story about the making of the movie with lots of candid personal photos taken behind the scenes. And it was recently revised and updated for the 55th anniversary of the movie. Angela, what gave you the idea to produce this incredible book?
Well, I was actually with Heather, and I was looking through some old pictures, and we were reminiscing and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, this would make such a great book, because I do have all these memories and photographs taken at the time. Our parents shot, not some video, not a whole lot, but some, and all these photographs when we were on the set behind the scenes. And also, I know people really love seeing stuff like that. So I said, let's think about doing this. And, it took us like a year of getting it together, but talking to the rest of the kids, they were like, oh yeah, I have my airline ticket from when I went. And I have, from cash sheets and call sheets. And I was just like, oh my God, but you always need a gatherer or stuff like that. So I became that gatherer, being a double Virgo. It just is my lot in life, and gathering it all together. And then we had Fred Bronson. So it was one voice. We had him knitted all together, and it was our interviews, but his voice our voices through him that kind of, put the story together. I love that book, and it has since been updated, to include, Charmy and Heather. And it's a story I think that people that love the movie would totally enjoy reading and seeing that memorabilia.
Oh, absolutely. Now, at one point, you were going to host a tour of Austria and Bavaria for Sound of Music fans. Is that still on?
I have done that 4 times. I have a blast. I take a group of people, we go to all the locations, I talk about my memories, they have questions. It is so much fun, and it's through craft tours. And I was going to do it this spring, and I think I'm going to postpone it. If there's one thing about this tour, it is joyous and it is fun. And the climate right now is just a little stressful, I think. And I don't want people to, go there and not have a good time because they're worried. So I think I'm going to postpone it again, but I plan to continue it. And if you go to my website, I will always keep you up to date.
Yeah, I want to mention to people, the website is angela-cartwright.com. And I will be mentioning that again later in the interview.
That's my showbiz website, yes. I am in the process of updating my website.
Now, of course, I have to ask you about Lost in Space, which I was absolutely addicted to. When you did that show, no one had ever walked on the moon yet. And there you were pretending to be out there discovering different planets. You looked like you were having such a good time on that set.
It was a lot of fun. that show was a lot of fun. I talked earlier about being a family. Well, my Lost in Space family is also something that is something close to my heart. When we get together, we always have laughs. It was a fun show to film. And I always was entranced with space, and the idea of going to the moon or going to another planet was something that was very in the front of people's minds because it had never been done before. What would it be like if a family went? And that kind of really caught people's attentions. I had done several years ago, I talk about this in the Lost in Space 2 book. Bill Mumy and Marta and we went to NASA, and we met a lot of people there that told us the reason they got in the space program was because of Lost in Space, because it also grabbed their imaginations, and they went to pursue, a career in that. So that, and you can touch people's lives like that, that's very meaningful to me. I just love that.
And so gratifying. Well, I can't resist asking you about that amazing robot who seemed so human. How much fun was he to work with?
Well, there was a man inside that robot, That didn't come out for many, many years. The idea of having a robot that you could actually talk to and think, this was not something that at the time, anybody thought was possible. So it was kind of cool. And Bobby May was the gentleman that was inside the robot. And he loved that character. And he was very much into it also. It was, the robot is a wonderful part of Lost in Space. He's very old-fashioned looking now, but I think people adore the way that he looked. He was a character.
Yeah. In fact, my favorite episode of Lost in Space was War of the Robots. Do you have a favorite episode, Angela?
Well, I really liked My Friend Mr. Nobody. I think the idea of talking, Penny meets this voice, this kind of energy voice in this cave, and it becomes her friend because, another part of it was that here we were lost on this planet with no friends or anything, and it was pretty lonely. So for Penny to make a friend, and also I love the way that was shot, besides the incredible musical score of John Williams, who at the time, this was one of his first shows that he did the score for, and he does amazing music. He's such an incredible composer. I love the score, and I love the noir look of that show. So I'd have to say that's my favorite one.
Yeah, I really love that one too. And I would be crucified if I didn't ask you about Jonathan Harris, who played the evil Dr. Zachary Smith. What was he really like?
Oh, Jonathan, I adored him. He was such a character. In the beginning, he was evil, and he was a serious character. And then it kind of shifted because they wanted to lighten Lost in Space. They felt that it was too scary for kids in that time slot. And Jonathan seized on creating a more humorous character, like, oh, the pain, and all of his little nuances. Most of those came from him. I have to say maybe all of them. He created this Dr. Smith character that has just become so iconic. As a person, I love Jonathan. He was hardworking. He knew his lines. He was totally prepared. And he was also, a good teacher to both Bill and me. We talk a lot about him in Lost and Found in Space 2, because he was a big part of the show. Bill had many, many scenes with him, and, we adored him. He was a good friend.
I understand that you and Bill Mumy and Marta Kristen, who played your sister Judy on Lost in Space, did voiceover work in The Bolt Who Screwed Christmas that also featured Jonathan Harris's voice. How amazing was that?
It was. I love doing voiceover work, and that was really fun to do. It was, I don't even know where you can find it anymore, but Jonathan also was in A Bug's Life Did you know that? He
Yes.
was one of the, I can't remember the character, but he had a very distinctive voice, and he did voiceover also. But it was great to be a part of that.
Now, you and Bill Newman produced a fantastic book called Lost and Found in Space, and you just re-released a new expanded edition. For those of us who already have the first edition, can you tell us what can we expect in the new revised edition?
Oh, so much more. Kevin Burns, who was he loved Lost in Space, and he was a producer. He produced Ancient Aliens, lots of history biographies, Girls Next Door, many, many shows. He loved Lost in Space, and he kept Lost in Space alive, really. He was always our advocate. He was also a huge collector and collected pictures and all the memorabilia that went with Lost in Space. And we used to get together every year. And then when Jonathan passed away, we always used to have Jonathan's birthday dinner together. Kevin sadly passed away a year and a half now, I guess. I miss him a lot. He was a force to be reckoned with for sure. But he purchased the archives from CBS of all the Lost in Space pictures. So he called me. He said, Angelino, which was what Jonathan used to call me, but Kevin went on to call me that also, said, you have to do another book. You have, both Bill and I went on to be in the Netflix movie, as a cameo. We also did all these conventions. There was so much more to the story of Lost in Space than what there was in the first edition of the book. And so we got hit by the pandemic, and both Bill and I, we were locked down, and it was a perfect time for us to concentrate totally on finding our memorabilia and this new stuff that Kevin had also given us. And we went on to start to write more stories to go with it. So there's a lot more copy. There's over 900 images. There's 365 pages in this book. So it's definitely expanded version, and it's 2, and it's that purple one right there. I'm really proud of this book. It really, it not only explains who we were as Penny and Will, where we had come from, and the show, and the characters, and the people that we worked with, but it went on to where our lives went after that. And, how we got together and had conventions and occasions that we met. And so we take you on that journey with us.
Well, talking about where your life went after that, you appeared in the 1998 Lost in Space movie, and you're also in season 2 of the Netflix series Lost in Space. It must be so gratifying to see your iconic TV show from the 60s still inspiring new shows and growing a new audience.
I know. It was the first one. I felt it's time to pass the baton. It was not as successful as the Netflix one, because the Netflix one, I do believe, concentrated more on family. And Kevin was also involved in that Netflix one. And there is an essence to Lost in Space that made it successful. And I believe that Netflix one was able to tap into that. And that was a blast, being able to be Sheila Harris. I love that, because Sheila Allen, of course, was Irwin's wife, and Harris, Jonathan, of course. So I was kind of, even though the part was short, it had depth, because I was actually the reason Parker Posey was so screwed up. It kind of touched a little bit on that. And I love that. It was great. And we went to Canada to film that. So
I loved it. I loved it too. Now, you and Bill Newman have collaborated on another book entitled On Purpose, which is a fantasy adventure novel about finding your true path and purpose in life. What inspired that book, Angela?
Well, it was many years in the making. It actually, oh my God, when I think of when we started it and where we continued to write it over many, many years. And then we finally pulled it together. We actually are going to re-release this book soon under the name Stolen Imaginations, which is in Lost and Found in Space 2. We call it that, even though it's still available as on purpose. It is a fantasy adventure. And I think a lot had to do with where we were in our lives at the time. I was doing a lot of reflection, a lot of art, and kind of figuring my kids were older now. And who was I? What was I doing? And it was challenging to me to find my purpose. And so it kind of becomes part of, these are the characters that we created to kind of investigate that, although it's not true to life because Bill and I are not fairies. We are kind of the catalyst behind the story. But oh my God, it was so much fun to write because Bill has written many times for comic books, and it's a true adventure. It really is. I'm still very proud of that book. I think it would make a great movie. And, the thread of it is very consistent, I think. And I think we all are challenged by what should we go on to do now? If our life has been raising our kids or we've been in a job and we want to change it, when we sit back and are honest with ourselves about where do we want to go from here. So I think the basis of the story is powerful.
Yeah, I do too. Now, Angela, I have to tell you as a movie buff that I'm absolutely crazy about your book, Styling the Stars, Treasures from the 20th Century Fox Archive. This book is a must-have for every fan of classic Hollywood because it's jam-packed with very rare continuity photographs of the biggest stars of all time. Angela, how did you come up with the idea to go into the 20th Century Fox archives to look for those photos?
Well, I love photography. If you follow me on, any of the social media, I love photography. And I also love continuity photos because they are raw. They're from behind the scenes. And I came across some continuity photos of me from The Sound of Music. And I had a dream about it, which is where a lot of ideas come to me. And I had a dream because I was thinking everybody, every star, every actor and actress, they have a continuity picture taken of them on whatever movie that there is. And it has been going on since the beginning of movies. And I came up with this idea because I can remember as a kid seeing these boxes there was kind of like this hallway outside this set on 20th Century Fox lot. And there were piles of boxes and boxes in the bathroom. And I never looked in them or anything, but it turns out that those, when I kind of investigated the story of where these files were put, that was where they stored these pictures. And they were afraid to get rid of them in case they needed them. A continuity photograph is taken at the beginning of each scene in a movie or television show to kind of register what the outfit is that they're wearing, because you don't always shoot in sequence. The wardrobe department or the hair department needs to have a reference on what size was the scar on, or if they have dirt on their face, or how was their hair, so that they can match it. And I did some investigating. At that time, they had created an archive at 20th Century Fox, which is under the studio. It was very, very Indiana Jones. You take this elevator down from the mill house, and you go and down these halls, and then there's this archive. And a wonderful gentleman worked there in the archives and was as excited about the book as I was. Of course, I had all these channels to go through and make sure that 20th would allow me to go in there and I would be able to pick the photos I wanted. And it was a big process. You have to really believe your idea to get it across, and that I knew this would be a fascinating book. Insight Publications did it, and they did a beautiful coffee-size book. I think it's since sold out, but it won many awards, the cover and everything.
Well, you just mentioned the cover. You chose to put a very unusual photo of Marilyn Monroe on the cover. Why?
This was a box that was brought out. They're all dusty. They hadn't been opened forever. That's why I was saying it. It's like going into an archaeological dig, when we had our white gloves on and we opened this box. And here is these pictures of Marilyn Monroe from No Business Like Show Business. And a lot of people don't know that she was deaf. I think she was deaf in one ear or both. I'm not sure. But if you look closely, she has a hearing aid in that picture. And I saw that picture and I went, wow, this is the cover. I got to see if I can get this to be the cover. It was just a very beautiful picture of her. And yet the fact that she had a hearing aid kind of made it like, this is all about how real actors and actors look, actors and actresses. It was just a powerful picture. And I remember not having a second choice. This was just, I wanted that one on the cover, and they agreed.
Oh, and it's a perfect choice because it conveys to us more than the iconic image. It conveys to us the vulnerability of the person, and that you're getting to see someone in a photograph you would never, ever get a chance to see if we weren't there on the set at the time.
Exactly. These photos were never meant to be seen by anybody but the wardrobe and hair department. A lot of them, they're holding, a comb in their hand because that was for hair. And then in those days, there wasn't digital. They used to film. It used to be film. It used to go to a little film department. It was like a little building. They'd develop it, and then it would be delivered to the hair or wardrobe department, usually by bicycle. It was so much fun to remember all of that. It was like a little mini city, right? 20th was magical in those days. You could see Hello Dolly being shot, on the, Hollywood Street or New York Street. And then there would be, all these characters going to the commissary in their costumes. It was just the best time ever. It just really was. I have fabulous memories from that.
I can only imagine. Angela, you're one of the most multi-talented guests we've ever had on our show. Quite apart from your show business career, you're a highly acclaimed artist. Can you tell us about the evolution of your career as an artist?
Well, I've always loved art, and I always used to do it as a child. And then when I got to be a certain age, I kind of, you become kind of judgmental about your art, and you kind of pulled back and stopped doing it. And then when I was 15, my parents gave me a camera, a Nikon, and I became totally enchanted with photography. And I just shot pictures of everything and everyone. I used to photograph my friends. I used to feed them pizza and dress them up and take photographs of them. In those days, food did wonders. You could get people to do stuff just for a dinner. This was all when I was like, in my early 20s and kind of teen age. My dad also loved photography, and he taught me a lot. We used to go and develop pictures. He turned his garage kind of into a little studio. It has a lot of good memories tied up with it. And so later on, I started to experiment with my photography again. I used to walk in Descanso Gardens, which was by where my son went to school, high school. And I actually used to go there so I'd miss the traffic because it always used to be really crowded in the morning. And I started to take pictures and hand paint them. I loved an artist, William Nutting, who took photographs and did hand paint them. And it was a kind of a movement at the time, and then it kind of went out of fashion. But that's what I did. And I've just gone on to kind of use those photos in different ways, cutting them up and putting them in my art. And it's the thing that brings me the most happiness, I think. And kind of fulfilling way. It's the one thing that I can do that makes me feel completed. If I'm sad or want to remember something or whatever, I'll go and play in my art room, which is behind me, which is a total disaster. It's such a mess, but I love it. It's
a sign of a creative person. You've produced 3 gorgeous books about your art entitled In This House, a collection of altered art imagery and collage techniques, Mixed Emulsions, altered art techniques for photographic imagery, and In This Garden, explorations in mixed media visual narrative. It all sounds very complicated, but the concept of fusing art and photography is really quite simple, isn't it?
It is. You just have to let it go. I wrote 2 of those books with Sarah Fishburne, another artist. Mixed Emulsions was just a lot of different techniques, stamping on photos, creating different ways of, mosaicing them and cutting them up or using inks. So that one was more technique. But the others, we, both Sarah Fishburne and myself, we found artists to create a single idea, and every artist interprets it a different way, which is the beautiful thing about art. Nobody looks at it the same way,
Well, now, as I mentioned in my introduction, you have a line of clothing, jewelry, and accessories, which people can find on your website, which is angelacartwrightstudio.com, correct?
Correct. That's the store, the shop. I've got all sorts of stuff. It comes, it goes, it changes constantly. I do use my images on scarves and like this, and different wraps and stuff like that. I'm just constantly doing something, doing something that makes me happy.
I also want our viewers to know that you can follow Angela's career and find out about all her projects on her official website, angela-cartwright.com. Well, Angela, I must tell you that I've been so looking forward to meeting you and to chatting with you about your amazing career. I've enjoyed every moment of our time together. Thank you so much for taking the time to appear on our show.
Oh, I can't believe it's over. It's like, whoa, it's been a pleasure talking to you and reminiscing myself. I enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Our guest has been the wonderful actress, author, and artist, Angela Cartwright. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to our producer, Steve Silver. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.